Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. You've not heard my voice in a week or two, but I'm back. I'm Harry, and I'm joined by the lovely Greg. Greg, how we doing?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. You surviving?
Just about, mate. Just about. You know the rules. Hibs aren't great. Harry's not great. It seems to have actually taken a negative impact on my health this time, so that's not ideal. But we're also joined by the charming Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm all good, Harry. Thanks very much. And get well soon, brother.
Nah, no worries. I'm sure that talking through the questions that we've got sent in will help me through that. But just before we come on to the questions, game at the weekend, obviously a bit of a shambles in terms of the referee kind of making himself the star of the show. We'll cover it in depth because there's a few questions on it. But what were your guys' initial impressions after the game?
An absolute disgrace of a refereeing performance, to be honest. Like Yuan should never be sent off. I think even for the first one, the Celtic players made a lot of it. And then for the second one, it's just not a booking. To be honest, it's not a foul. If anything, it's a foul on Ellie Yuan. I noticed that Richard Foster said that he was endangering the opponent. I don't think he was though. I think he was just trying to almost take the ball as he was being pushed to the ground. But his foot was like maybe 10 yards up off the ground, so it really wasn't a lot. But yeah, I mean, and then for their penalty, you just knew that the ref was going to be looking to give it, especially after we'd had one for very similar. You just knew the ref was going to be looking to even it up. But that's what happens when you go through to Glasgow. It's tough enough, but the referees don't help at
Aye.
all.
And Ryan, one thing I kind of harked on about before these two games against Rangers and Celtic is that I just didn't want us to lose the momentum that we had going into the game. Do you think, like, obviously can't be happy given that it's two defeats and relatively heavy one against Rangers, but do you think that the team can still have confidence after the international break?
Yeah, I mean, despite the result against Celtic, I think there is positives to take from it. There was a couple of players that kind of come in out of the cold. Miller and Jake Hayes both put in good performances. So that's positives. And I think that Lee Johnson certainly learned from the last time going to Celtic Park that you can't be open and expansive. So it was quite refreshing to see himself in a defensive type style. And it seemed to frustrate them for the most part. And his game plan worked to a point until the referee decided that Celtic on his betting slip was going to let him down. But there was a lot of positives to take from it, albeit it was a 3-1 defeat. I mean, in hindsight, you look back and you think Hibs should have had a penalty, Celtic shouldn't have had a penalty, possibly a foul on Josh Campbell if you're going to give the two previous as fouls. So therefore, you're a 1-0 game, which against Celtic at Celtic Park's not bad.
Yeah, no. For whatever it's worth, from my point of view, I think the Paul Hanlon decision was horrendous. I don't think that was a penalty for Hibs. I think that the guy slowed it down and it looks like a penalty. I think that the Carter Vickers one's even softer, and I think G was spot on. I personally think the first yellow card was a bit harsh on you, and it was one of the first fouls of the game. The ref just kind of wanted a bit of attention. Then the second one, he's got it brutally wrong. I don't understand why VAR's there if you're not going to watch that back and see him get literally thrown to the ground by Cameron Carter Vickers. So yeah, referee not his finest game, I think it's fair to say. But that was enough of our little rambles about the game. I'm sure we'll chat about it a bit more. But first of all, we got Keith Robertson, and he asked, with reports coming out that Lee Johnson will serve a touchline ban during the Motherwell game, should he just sit behind the dugout? Seemed to work for Goodwin during his ban at Aberdeen.
I don't know what the rules are.
But Jenka should just chance it and do it because, to be fair to Goodwin, he was no further than 2 seats away from the dugout the whole game. Like he had a better view, I reckon, from up there.
Was that at Pataudry though, where there's only one tier? Yeah, he'll get kicked up the stair like. But
Aye. Yeah,
I
at
think we
least.
need much more shithousery at Hibs, eh? So like,
Aye.
if that falls into that criteria, absolutely do it.
Yeah, but was it something that made you angry seeing the Hibs guy? I don't think they've been named yet, but seeing the Hibs staff throw the ball into the pitch, or did you just think it was a bit funny?
Brilliant. If it takes 10 balls on the pitch to attack and fucking win a game of football, like Simeone does things like that every week, and he's one of the best managers in the world. He's gained success at Atletico Madrid. So if we can get even 0.1% of that success, throw 100 balls on the pitch. I don't give a fuck.
Gee, your opinion?
Just like good on him. You know what I mean? Like I know Ange Postecoglou's more about Lee Johnson saying he could hear him for 100 minutes or whatever, but what's he meant to do? Just stay quiet, you know? I don't mind him ruffling a few feathers because they do it elsewhere, so just give them it back.
Absolutely, G.
Don't mind it.
Don't mind it.
Listen. You need to try and do things to disrupt the flow of the game and almost put them off their stride. It's just the way it is.
Aye. Yep.
Aye, definitely. And completely changing the tone, we had FFS Hibs. Isla has asked, how many penguins could you fit in a chest freezer? And then Ray of Sunshine on Leaf, Raimondo, added, roughly based on a 400, it says 400-litre chest freezer, but that seems a bit large to me. But then he says it would be 1,703 packets of 6 penguins, so approximately 10,223. How many packets of penguin, or how many penguins do you reckon you could fit in your fridge freezer? Or chest freezer for that matter.
Well, is it an actual penguin or a chocolate biscuit penguin?
I'm assuming chocolate biscuit. I would hope chocolate biscuit.
Well, pretty small nowadays.
Aye.
A lot would be the answer.
Ryan, what about yourself? How many are you thinking?
How many did the other boy say?
10,223, I believe. Yeah.
Right,
Well, that's based on was it a 400-litre?
Aye.
Freezer would probably take about 5,423.
Okay, you've got some big bloody freezers, like.
Nah, my freezer's no big at all. I just didn't ken the right answer. Don't know what's going to make the listeners happy.
I've no idea. I'll stick it like 6,969. There you go. Just make it as silly as possible. But moving on to the next question, back to Hibs. Thanks for that question, Isla. Dan Taylor asked, should the Scottish Football Authorities use this 2-week break to determine whether VAR is fit for purpose and if the standard of officiating in the country is acceptable? I think we all know that F-all is going to change. So let's break it down. So should they use a 2-week break to determine whether VAR is fit for purpose?
Harry, I spoke to you. Remember the St Johnstone game that was on? And it was £5 tickets and it was under the lights. I spoke to you after it and I said, I think that was the first game that VAR got used. I said to you that I would have liked to have seen a couple of things come into play before VAR was introduced. Full-time referees was one of them and goal line technology was the other. I still believe that those two things are more important at this point in time than VAR because VAR has been used in an amateurish way. It's not been used to the best of its abilities. It's not benefiting anybody. We're not gaining anything from it. So I think the whole thing needs to be revamped, not VAR, the officiating system in Scottish football.
I find that hard to disagree with. Greg, come to you. Do you think how would you rate the officiating in the country? Do you think it's actually comparably worse in other countries, or do you think that there's kind of a refereeing epidemic across Europe at the moment? Because it does seem like a lot of leagues are unhappy with the refereeing standards.
No, but I think that's always probably been the case. I don't think anyone actually goes, our refs are good. VAR has come in at a time where we pay refs per game. They don't get actual salary, as far as I believe, and it's they've got ultimately got full-time jobs as well as being a referee. What you need to do is you almost need to invest in the refereeing, and you need to make them full-time, give them the tools to be the best referees almost, because what we're being served up at the moment is absolutely horrendous. Probably the best refereeing performance was when the referees went on strike 10 years ago, and we had the Maltese referee, and he was decent because he never took any shite. It was his decision, and that was it. Where I feel like the refs in Scotland will just allow torrents of abuse towards them, and they're not strong enough, it feels like, to referee games. I mean, you look at VAR now, ultimately it's almost 2 minutes of decision. If the ref needs to go and look at the monitor, which just slows the game up totally, it just rips any sort of fluidity out of the game as well. But I just think that it's not been used in a proper way by people who are underqualified to use it.
Again, I think you've hit the nail on the head. One comment I will make is it's not a sport that's particularly favoured on the podcast, but rugby referees, in my opinion, are the most respected referees out of any sport I've watched. And I genuinely think that's because they're given a platform to kind of explain, and there is kind of that respect given to them. I'm not saying that we should flip on its head and just give referees undying respect, but I do think if they were given a voice and could actually explain decisions as opposed to us kind of guessing what's going on in their heads, it would definitely be of use for humanising them. It's something I've always said about referees. They're just kind of the one bad bastard in the middle of the pitch that's ruined the game for us, as opposed to being a human being that's trying to officiate a football game. Um, but yeah,
To
any
be
other
fair
comments?
though, what I do find is that sometimes red cards that are given after VAR aren't overturned when they should be. Like, for example, I don't think Vassell should have been sent off against us. I don't think Jason Holtz was a red card early on Christmas Eve against Livingston. So it's almost like they're too proud to go back on the decision, which is disappointing because it almost takes tackling right out of the game, doesn't it?
Aye.
For me, Jason Holt didn't really do anything wrong. He won the ball. You can't ultimately stop yourself once you have won the ball. So I just think that there's an element of they're too proud to go back on the decisions, and ultimately just slows the game down, takes any excitement out of the game. We want to see big tackles, etc. So yeah, I just think it's been toned right down, but they're almost too stuck in their ways now of let's go to the monitor and we'll be safe, and relying on VAR a little bit too much, I would think.
I don't know if you've seen I think it was John Hill for Hearts that put in a crunching tackle at the weekend. Can't remember what Aberdeen player it was, but to be fair, I mean, flew in, smacked the ball, and the boy went flying. And then Aberdeen fans are trying to claim it's a red card. For me, he's won the ball clearly. It's not really a debate. It shouldn't even be a foul. But yeah, as you say, Greg, I think the game's going a bit softer. It might be a good thing in terms of player safety, but it's a shame that the beautiful art of defending is watching someone fly in and crunch someone whilst winning the ball and then just getting up and dusting themselves off. So it's a shame that that aspect of the game is dying a little bit. Um, but yeah, moving on. We've got Jeff Ashton, who has asked, apart from the obvious huge turning point, thought Big Fish going off with what looked like an injury was another big one. CJ good but doesn't have the same aerial presence, maybe cost us a second goal. Also, how good was Miller? Showed what he brings to the table. Jake Doyle-Hayes superb as well. So that's a few in there. So let's dissect. If Fish goes down injured, is that a catastrophic miss for the next few games?
That's a big
Say
blow,
so.
massive blow. The upturn in form's kind of come at a time where he's hit his form as well, and he's hit his stride. And obviously, the last two games take that out of there. We've been fairly solid at the back. He's struck up a good partnership with Hanlon and been consistent since he's come into the team. Obviously, after the debacle at Tynecastle, but I think it would be a big miss, and he's an absolute monster in the air, which suits Scottish football. As you know, there's a lot of high balls put into the box and set pieces, and seems to defend them really well. So unfortunately, it would be a bit of a miss if he was out.
He's also got that ability to distribute the ball as well. We've seen that a couple of times where he's played missiles up the line or through the middle. He has a big miss because he's come onto a game and he's looked solid, and him and Hanlon have really struck up a partnership. It's disappointing if he is now injured for a couple of weeks because he was really getting into his stride. But hopefully with the international break he'll be back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the second part of that question was CJ maybe not so good in the air. If I'm not mistaken, for the second goal, was it not Josh Campbell that was supposed to be marking all?
Yeah, and
Um,
I think see for me, Egan Riley's okay in there.
yeah,
I think his best quality is probably when he's got the ball at his feet, but he's
yeah.
certainly not going to shy away from a header. He's a physical player as well,
Mhm.
so that physicality transfers into aerial battles as well.
I wouldn't say that anybody was at fault for the second goal. That's actually a really well worked set piece. They clear the box. It gives all a lot of space to run into. Campbell gets blocked off, and then obviously there's a bit of jostling. So I don't think there's blame there. I think it was actually quite a well worked set piece. So yeah,
One
If I
thing I
was
will
being
say,
picky, sorry,
sorry,
Harry, if I was being picky, I would expect Josh Campbell to do more.
the only
I
thing I
think
will
he's
say to Josh Campbell is I think size wise, O has got him absolutely cleared. If they were having a fist fight, I don't think
yeah.
Campbell would have a chance. I think he kind of got ragdolled. I personally
Yeah,
think the assignment should have been tweaked slightly for who was marking who, but that might just be me.
Yeah, no, I think maybe a bit more, but I do think Campbell could have done slightly more in terms of just getting himself in the way. But
matching them.
maybe being a little bit picky.
But the thing is, if you're a smaller player, you always have to make yourself a bit more annoying, and I think he failed to do that, which I think is a fair comment.
To be fair, he is 6 foot, so
Is he
I
six? Is
wouldn't.
Josh Campbell 6 foot?
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't
didn't know that.
really class. And I'm sure he is. I wouldn't class that as small. I think he could, and he's quite a well built laddie. So yeah,
Being honest, that's just me being naive. I always thought Josh Campbell was a bit smaller than the average midfielder we had. Fair enough.
no, I think he is.
You,
Yeah,
you learn something new every day, chaps. And then we'll just bung the last two in at the same time. Lewis Miller at right back, well, right wing back, and then JDH back in the team. If they both play like that, I think there's definitely a place for them. I think they both showed the quality that they do have, and if they're playing well like that at Celtic Park, then I definitely think they can carry it against the lesser teams in the league.
This podcast, and I'll speak for everybody, this podcast has always rated JDH very highly. I think we've
yeah,
all seen that there's a footballer in there, good technical ability, neat and tidy on the ball, tenacious, got determination, reads the game well. And Lee Johnson would like his football IQ. But just on him and Miller, I think Johnson probably deserves a bit of praise. Nobody would have expected Miller to play and probably play as well as he did. So credit where credit's due.
yeah.
Although we got beaten in the game, I think both performed well and justified their selection. And I was really impressed how much Jake Doherty's put himself about, considering how long he's been out for. Made a couple of tackles that's my kind of thing. It really impressed me how much he was willing to put himself about.
We have always rated him. I think you can see that. I think he's maybe been, by no fault of his own, played in positions where he's maybe not overly comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, we got him till 2024, so still got another season after this one finishes. So hopefully, he can get a run of games in the team and really stamp his authority on his place in the team. But I thought Miller was very good as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's a physicality to Miller's game that if he leans into, then he can definitely be a successful player in the Scottish game. But then Jaden Tate1875 said thought there was a few standout performances, and then they coined JDH as one, and then he asked who was your man of the match at the weekend.
Between Miller and Jake Doyle-Hayes for me.
I'd probably edge more maybe towards Jake Hayes, but I think Miller on his first start in the league was very good.
I'll say Miller if Greg says Jake Doyle-Hayes. I'll say Miller. There we go.
Being honest,
Yeah,
I've only on you go.
Just you touched on there Miller's physicality. I think he's an athlete. Like he's certainly got the physique and the body. You know, he's a young laddie. He can only get bigger and better. I think going forward, he's maybe had that time to settle. I think he can probably go on to make a bit of an impact in this team. It's up to him now to do that. Ball's in his court.
And then one final comment from Jaden was, what was your thoughts on the lineup when it came out? Seen a lot of people not liking it, but I thought he picked the right team. Do you think the selection was spot on? Was there anything you would have liked to see changed there?
Well, obviously, when the team first came out, you're thinking, Miller, he's not really been about the team, but listen, no matter what team you put out every week, somebody's going to have something to say about it because their favourite player's not in it, or you know what I mean. But I suppose you just need to trust the manager. And I think for me personally, I maybe got a little bit more trust in Lee Johnson now, considering if we look back at maybe a couple of months ago when we were struggling and you're almost not looking for ways to criticise him, but he was making it pretty easy.
Yeah.
Whereas with now, I like that he's almost turned the corner, and the team's turned a corner, and now we can see more of an identity, and we can see what we're actually trying to do on the pitch. And I think some of that possibly also comes from us speaking to him. He just, I think he spoke very well in the interview that we had with him. So you almost find that new level of respect and understanding when you do that.
And Ryan, touching on that, the way he spoke at the start of the season was something that got both yourself and my back up. Has he improved on that, in your opinion, in recent times?
Yeah. I think he's probably kind of learnt his lesson through that difficult period. Kind of ostracised himself a little bit. with some of the quotes he was coming out with, and some of the metaphors he was using, some of the buzzwords. Whereas now I think he's kind of fighting on our behalf against the press at certain times. And he done a small interview with PLZ Soccer at the weekend, and he was criticising the officiating and the fact that they're not full-time refs. That's the kind of things I want to hear him talk about when we get beat, not go knock on the door and ask what they're having for breakfast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And equally, the way he talks when we've been winning in recent weeks has been something that's impressed me, as opposed to the Del Boy patter. But I was never Lee Johnson out. I done my usual and sat in the fence. But as Greg says, he's kind of built up a little bit of goodwill with certain people over the last couple of months, and going forward, hopefully we can all just kind of go in the same direction.
Nice.
Even during that bad period, though, he obviously said something that probably resonates with me and Ryan quite a lot, because I know that me and Ryan have spoke about this separately, but he says the mediocrity, or the acceptance of mediocrity or whatever. Me and Ryan speak about it quite a lot, to be fair. out with the chat, so we don't bore anyone, but I think there is that almost level of mediocrity. Hibs are okay to finish fourth or fifth, and we don't want that. We should be pushing third consistently. So, yeah, I think that he does say some things that probably do resonate with us, but he does need to cut the metaphors out in the David Brent patter. But
all in good time, G. All in good time.
We'll get there. We'll just keep tipping away at him. Like, he's getting better, man.
I know.
Getting better. Like, yeah.
Right, so we got two more people that have asked questions. So first we'll go John McIntosh. We'll say him for second last this time. So the first part of his question was, should we bin VAR? Are you at the point that you just want to out the game at this point?
Yeah, you would probably celebrate goals. You're like, oh, that's where a hint of offside. But there's I just don't think it adds much value.
I'm kind of along the same lines as G in that it doesn't add any value. See if something doesn't make football better, get rid of it. Don't keep it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not improving the game, so what purpose is it serving to anybody? And there is a reliance on it from referees. It's almost as if they're like re-officiating the game through VAR. They know, like, if I get this wrong, it doesn't matter. VAR's going to correct it anyway.
Yeah, and like to flip the old adage, if it is broken, do fix it. It's clearly not working at the moment, so we need to do something. Then, of course, he's asked, "What's for dinner, guys?"
Add salt and pepper, chicken and rice.
Nice.
Solid.
Nice.
That sounds Chinese. Like, not Chinese, but you get it for Chinese.
It was homemade. Also splashed a bit of medium Nando's sauce in it as well.
Was that Elaine made, or did Chef G come out?
Nah, Elaine made it.
Yes, what a woman! What a woman! Ryan, what about yourself?
Zero.
Yes.
Beef ragu gnocchi.
Oh, okay.
I like
fancy
gnocchi
tonight, boys.
No, I love gnocchi. It's like potato filled pasta, man. It's beautiful. And do it in the frying pan for 5 minutes, and then bug it in the sauce in the pan. And honestly, John McIntosh, get a bash, like.
And then I've got a chicken thighs, and I'm gonna have chicken thighs and chorizo, I reckon. And then probably put a nice few bunch of herbs in there. Where I'm obsessed with chicken thighs. Like, yeah, I can't get enough of them.
They're lovely, yeah.
It's so succulent. Hey, I'd like see chicken breast. I'm like, I can sit on the fence, but chicken thighs, I'm all over it.
Absolutely.
And then final question of the day is from a personal favourite of mine, Michael McCurdy, who has asked, after more than a few Hibs fans stuck with the restricted view at Parkhead on Saturday, what would be your worst and best grounds you visited for overall fan experience? Can be in Scottish football or otherwise. So we'll start with the worst. So what's the worst fan experience that you've endured?
Pittodrie, no roof, shithole. Me and Ewan were up there for that Friday night game earlier on in the season. Baltic, windy, pissing rain, shite. The place is an absolute shithole to boot.
G?
There's a couple. Alloa.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Cowden Beath is pretty bad. Cowden Beath in the pissing rain one day. Honestly, I think I lasted about 20 minutes. Really bad.
I'll give a few honourable mentions as well. Alloa, Aberdeen, definitely in mine. As most people who know me tend to know, I do wear shorts to all football games out of spite to Craig McCurdy. But I went to Stenhouse Muir once, and it is the only time in my life I've regretted wearing shorts. I literally got onto the train, and my like legs were pink because it was that cold and wet. It was horrendous. So not that wasn't really Stenhouse Muir's fault. I actually quite like their park, but yeah, it was not good. And then what's the other? I don't know. Dumbarton. I've never really clicked with Dumbarton. Not one for me.
Really?
Yeah, don't like it.
Don't love it because of the Rock as well, eh? Folk
I
Aye,
had
really
a
like
few
that
bad
stadium.
experiences at Dumbarton though.
aye.
That's the thing.
The fans
That's
going after
wild.
the throat for the Scott Allen game, the infamous Scott Allen game. If you were at that one.
Superb. I was there. He got absolutely abused.
Oh, and then the people that were
I
abused them
was
got
just buzzing
abused.
to
Oh,
see John McGinn, to be honest.
aye, fair. Yeah, that was someday like. But then, guys, let's end it on a happy note. We'll obviously exclude Easter Road. Best fan experience that you've been to, can be Scottish football or otherwise.
Nottingham
Either
Forest taking the lead after 6 minutes against Derby County. It was
it's
unbelievable, to
big
be honest.
aye. It's big
Solid.
rivalry, that, isn't it?
Nottingham Forest weren't doing great, but still a full house, I'm sure. And absolute chaos, to be honest. 1-1-0 as well, so very good.
I was at Goodison Park. It must have been about 6 or 7 years ago because they were half decent at the time. Under Martinez, it was the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final against Man City, and went 1-0 up. Holy shit, man! And Gareth Barry scored a scrappy goal, unbelievable. Pumped 3-1 though. But Goodison Park in general's really, really intimate stadium. It's really tight and close to the pitch, and the fans there are just hardcore. Really good atmosphere.
Yes.
So I enjoy it there. Obviously, Easter Road's the Leaf San Siro. It's the pinnacle, but yeah. And just one for Liam. I've been to Old Trafford, man. Too big. Fucking
Being
concert
honest,
venue, man. It's not a footy stadium.
uh, it's outdated. I've been to the Etihad and I've been to Old Trafford, and the Etihad as a stadium, obviously not including atmosphere, but as a stadium is far, far, far superior. Tottenham
Is it?
Stadium is really cool, but what was I going to say is my favourite one? Oh, guys, random one. I had a random weekend. I was when they playing when I was living in Manchester, and it was Blackburn away to Preston North End, and I went and
Oh,
Blackburn
Deepdale.
took Deepdale. Blackburn went 2-0 up after 6 minutes, and it was absolute carnage. And then like the thing I appreciated about Blackburn is Preston North End is like the team they hate the second most. And I was in the concourse having a beer, and they just would not shut up about how much they hated Burnley. And I was like, I respect that. They're playing a derby game and they're talking about another different club. I was like, that's good. Ended up getting beat 3-2. Tony Mowbray in the dugout at the time, but yeah, no, that was a good laugh. That was a good laugh.
I love Solitude as well, which is the home ground of Cliftonville,
Ooh,
in the north of Ireland. Just it's only got one fully open stand. The rest of it is like standing area, but lovely wee place. Hey, Greg.
Yes, lovely.
if you know,
Also, Stadium of Light,
Oh, it's huge,
very
isn't
good.
it?
Very good.
what one was that?
What
Sorry.
is it?
Stadium of Light.
Oh, Stadium of Light. Nice. Yeah, yeah.
Is it
Another big boy
40,000
stadium. Like,
folk or something?
Been in there a couple of times. One to
Sweet.
watch 0-0 against Leicester. Not exciting at all. And then the other time was like they got beat 3-1 or something off Man City, but they started so well, and Jermaine Defoe hit the beans on toast after a couple of minutes, and the place just erupted, and then it was downhill for there. But for those 2 minutes, it was really good.
right. I'll tell you one random one that's nothing to do with the question, but I thought I'd throw it in there. I was at the UFC at the weekend, Octagon side, and it's the first time I've watched a UFC bout, and I've actually felt, the nerves that you get before a really big football game. That it's a feeling that you've never had before. That's the first time for a fight I'd had that feeling when the title fight was going on, and it was insane. O2's it's a pretty fun atmosphere because everybody's just kind of like built up over the octagon. So yeah, that was pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. Have you got any favourite non-football experiences? Have you been to many events?
Um,
Listen, I feel Murrayfield's good. I'm not a massive rugby fan, but if you're patriotic and like to sing your national anthem and stuff like that, it's very exciting. Mostly just football, to be honest. I don't know about you, G.
non-football, probably not.
Fair.
But
Um, And guys, it's been pretty short, but I think it's been pretty fun. Any passing comments before we wrap things up?
On the cabbage.
Aye, well, guys,
Times two.
thanks so much for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening to our nonsense. As always, we appreciate it. We've got international break this weekend. We're not 100% sure when we'll be back. Likely next week ahead of we've got Motherwell next weekend, yeah.
Yep.
So likely do a preview for that. I don't think we've got an up the slope scheduled, but yeah, thanks as always for listening, and we will catch you next time. Goodbye.
Cheers.